Hey, welcome back to Mindset Explosion, Season 4, would you believe? We're on episode 29, and today, really been looking forward to this, introducing Ben Wilson from the Real Minded Method, and we'll be introducing, I hope at some point, Ben, the Real Minded Method, find out a little bit more about your story. But thanks for coming on today, buddy. Really appreciate it. I know you're so busy, but I spoke to you last week and we just talked a little bit before we came on that you've got such a passion for helping people, getting through with mental health, preventing it. I feel you've got some really great tools that you can share with anyone watching or listening on the podcast. And if you are listening, don't forget dropping a nice 5-star review and share it and tag someone in, because you never know, someone that maybe come across this, it may just really help them quite a lot. So just a few words, Ben. Tell us a little bit more about what you do and what the Real Minded is all about.
Thanks, Matt. Firstly, brother, massive thanks for reaching out. Really appreciate it. Great to connect to you last week. So what would you like to know? I feel like I need to put my glasses on so we can both be together. There we go. No, it's all good. So my name's Ben. I'm an NHS paramedic by trade, and I think it's about 4 or 5 years ago now. I was just having a stroll around a very well-known supermarket. If I tap my back pocket, that might give a clue as to where it was. And I suddenly just felt really unwell, and I felt really shaky, really sweaty. I wanted to be sick, and I just had to bail out. So I did, and I kept feeling like this, and did nothing about it. Just pushed it down and just thought, I'll be okay, I'll crack on. And then I was up in my spiritual home in North Wales with my family, kayaking, getting out on the sea, building sandcastles, having a few beers, all the standard stuff that we know is good for us and we all love to do. And out of nowhere, I started to experience some flashbacks, some really quite nasty flashbacks to do with my time working alongside the British Army and also as an NHS paramedic. In fact, more so as an NHS paramedic. And to cut a very long story short, I had some really quite nasty physical symptoms, and I was rushed into A&E, into resus twice actually, and had loads of really quite embarrassing tests done. And after a long time, I was really surprisingly diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder with associated anxiety, depression. And that started my journey into this pandemic that is mental health. And I think, Matt, what I'm really passionate about sharing is my story, so people don't make the same mistakes that I made, because for years I just crushed it. I just buried it down. And I was really, really lucky. I had some medication, and I had some awesome help from a top guy called Tom, who was a clinical psychologist. And I had to take a few months off work, but I made a full recovery. But that started this thirst for knowledge. As a guy, I had to know how on earth I'd ended up in A&E. And what I found is that you read all the books, you do all these courses, you speak to professionals, you have medication, but nobody can explain to you why you became unwell. And I was desperate to understand the why, and therefore what I could do about it. And that started the whole journey. And from there, I developed the Real Minded program, or the Real Minded method. And what that is it's a preventative method to teach us all why we react as we do to certain things in life. Because if we can understand why and how we react to things, then we can control it. And if we can control it, then we can prevent this horrible buildup of anxiety and depression that we know from research can lead to some really quite debilitating diseases. And I think it's important to let you know, I'm not talking about some of the psychotic diseases like psychosis or the more serious ones by bipolar. What I'm really passionate about is this buildup of anxiety and depression. And, just look at the stats. We've been going through this horrible pandemic of COVID, thanks a lot, but actually this mental health issue is also a really bad pandemic. It's actually affecting more people, and if you look at the latest stats coming out of the government for last year, 74% of us report feeling really unable to cope at the moment, not helped by COVID. Half of all GP consultations last year included a mental health issue. So if you start to dig down into the here comes the science bit, it's actually pretty scary. I mean, 1 in 3 of us are diagnosed with a mental health condition in our lifetime and take medication for it. But this is the killer. It's largely preventable. So if we can start to talk about our mental well-being and our mental health on the same way as we do our physical health, then fantastic. So my whole goal is to get out there and share the stories about me and what I went through and the subsequent coping mechanisms that I went through, because I know that it can have a massive impact and it can stop people ending up in A&E, which is what happened to me.
Which is, you know, to the massively extreme, to obviously got to.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, by the way, Lisa Kent has said hello. I don't know if you can see the comments, Ben. So that's your Sifu's wife. Hi, Lisa.
Yeah. Big love going out to Kent family. Awesome.
Yay. So do you feel when this hit you, I mean, you mentioned like obviously time in the army and being a paramedic.
Yeah.
Like for me, I think when I look back on some of the things with myself, I feel that maybe this has been part of me for a lot of my life, but it just, like you said, it kind of, it's there and it gets put down, and that maybe I didn't even feel I needed to talk about it. And out of nowhere, hey, hello, it's like a Jack in the Box. It's like winding up with that little tune. And, ta-da! Here I am.
You got it.
Go on, sorry.
No, absolutely, you got it. What you're talking about there is that pressure pot of the build, and all that is stress and anxiety. Okay, and I'll talk about the difference between those two in a minute, because if you can understand the difference between those two, you can learn to control them. But that's absolutely what it is, and it impacts absolutely everybody. And I think the biggest issue we've got in this country is we just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So at the lower end of the scale, sometimes just saying to a colleague or a friend, hey, are you okay? You don't seem yourself at the moment, can make a massive difference. And other times, like me, we bury it because we stupidly, naively think that's the strongest thing to do, which absolutely isn't. And we end up having to have, medical intervention.
Yeah.
But if you were walking across the street and you sadly get hit by a double-decker bus and you break your leg, everyone gives you loads of sympathy and it's not your fault. Agreed?
Yeah.
And there's no shame if the surgeon says to you, here's some nice medication for you to take for a few months to get rid of the pain that's in your leg. Okay, there's no stigma attached to that. We all just go, oh, poor Matt, what a shame. Hope he gets better. What can we do to help? But yeah, if you get struck down with a compound buildup of anxiety and depression, which means that you can't live like you would normally live, then people tend to react by saying, oh gosh, thank God that wasn't me. And they almost tend to not want to speak to you about it, and we need to stop that. We need to be able to normalize discussions around it, and the whole point of real minded is, if you take the word real, that's an acronym. The R stands for realize. So realize when you're starting to react badly. The E is to explore why you're acting badly. The A is to act. So you put in coping mechanisms to stop you feeling like that. And then the L is learn to live. And if you follow a really simple systematic method, on the whole, we know from scientific research, we can stop that buildup. And that's what I'm passionate about. It's getting that message out. So I'll give you a good example. You and I are old enough to remember this, but when we were at school, we're all taught about what's good for us physically. We're taught that exercise is good. We're taught, we're told sleep is good, and we're told, not to drink too much. We're told not to smoke. We're told to eat healthily, because if we don't, it might lead to things like a stroke or a heart attack. And then furthermore, when we get a bit older, we're taught the warning signs of a stroke or a heart attack. But who, when we were younger, told us the equivalent for our mental health? Nobody. And we're still not there. So one of my big passions, and I was talking to a chief exec of a Kids Mental Health Foundation yesterday, it needs to be getting out into the curriculum as well. Think of it like this. So 17.9 million working days were lost in the UK last year due to stress and anxiety. It's crazy amounts, absolutely crazy amounts. If we can get people to start talking about it a bit more, and we can get people to start thinking about their mental health on equal par with their physical health, then we can absolutely start to really help people. I mean, one of the saddest things when I was researching all of this and writing the program was, death by suicide, which is the absolute extreme, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah.
Last year that went up 50% in the 15 to 24-year-olds. And it's going up 10% in all the other age categories. It's, you know, it really is a pandemic. But if we can get it on the grassroots level and we can change people's mindset and how they think about things and how they react to things, then we can really help prevent it. And we ultimately, it's about saving lives, isn't it?
100%. And I think you said the word pandemic. So we've all just gone through let's say coming up 2 years, right, of the world, and how fast, whether anyone's a vaxxer, anti-vaxxer, it's totally irrelevant. The point is that the world moved to try and eradicate whatever this is. And sometimes that's a bit frustrating for me, because for what you've just said, we had a pandemic before that. We got a pandemic of obesity, never mind.
Yeah.
Maybe mental health as well. A lot of things are linked, you know, into mental health. And it's been a pandemic for so long. And I guess because, and it's crazy to think that I stood out in the garden last year watching a rocket fly over my, you know, when they did the rocket last year. We can fly to the moon if we want to. We're probably not far from getting out into space to go to Mars and everything else. And we're still stuck on so many core things. And you know yourself, when we're working on our mindset, we're working from the inside out quite a lot, you know. And you said it in the reel. It's, you know, it's understanding, where sometimes it's a bit frustrating to think, as a flipping human race, that we still struggle with so many things that we got a lot of work to do on. But hey, in time, hopefully, you know, if until people like yourself are taking that step forward and coming out and saying, look, this is what happened, and this is some tools that to sort that out. The more of us that do it, the better. I do feel we've, you know, it's evolving, but still such a long way to go. Such a long way to go.
It's 100% going in the right way. But I'll tell you a bit of a story. So I work for the NHS at the moment, and I work within the COVID response service. And I was moved into that as soon as the pandemic hit this country. But before that, I was lucky enough to be training certain groups of individuals. And those groups of individuals were ex-military, highly skilled operators that were working for a branch of the government. And my role was to teach them medical skills. But I was asked by their doctor to start running just a bit of a workshop on mental well-being and resilience. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to just tell them my story. And I was really quite scared about doing that. But we ended up talking for about 3 hours, and these hulking great guys were breaking down. They were crying. They were sharing stories. There was a lot of laughter, a lot of what I would call black humor, which is a way of a coping mechanism in those sort of environments. And from there, I thought, you know what, I'm going to break down my recovery and my learnt coping methods that we know work from all the scientific research. And I'm going to share it with them. And they came back and said, wow, this has made such a difference. So I then thought, you know what, I'm going to go and deliver it in a school or in a business, and anyone who will listen to me, because I wanted to share my story so nobody made the same mistakes that I made, you know. And for whatever reason, it hit a bit of a nerve, which was great. And my experience of working with those guys and training with them was that, you know, we all suffer from our mental health, no matter what we look like on the outside. You know, male, female, young, old. We can look as tough as you like. You know, but that's the mask that we put up for our work, okay? And actually beneath that mask is the real us. And it's about changing that mindset and changing how we think about things. And one of the things I'm really passionate about is explaining to people what is actually going on physically and mentally in our brains when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling anxious, when we have a panic attack. Because if we can understand those things, we can then control them. If we can control them, we can then prevent them.
Definitely. And I think sometimes, again, it's a key thing you've said, is the physical. Now, for me physically, I was pushing and it's the littlest thing, but my tongue was getting pushed into my teeth. My tongue, I was that stressed, it looked like I had bite indentations on the side. Okay. And I thought I'd bit my tongue. And I think I did the one time because it pushed it out that much. I've been on a plane. Oh my God, what the hell have I just done? Went to the dentist. So I think I bit my tongue. I think it was almost getting an infection. He said, no, you haven't bit it at all. You stressed at the moment. He got me to like open, close my mouth, talked about it a few times. So it was a sign. And even with the body and my stress, my back would start to ache, my knees start to ache. And obviously you, on the other hand, you've had even more to the extreme. So so that obviously, that all built up that internal stress.
You got it. You got it. It's about the holistic approach.
Yeah.
Okay. How we feel mentally affects how we are physically, and how we are physically affects how we are mentally. Okay. And they're always interlinked. They're always intertwined. And we need to put equal measure of importance on each of them. So we carry a lot of stress in our shoulders, in our neck, and the muscles in our face. That's probably where your stress came from.
Yeah.
Other things like that. People will clench the jaw, or people might get a little nervous titch on their eye. These are all stress symptoms coming out physically because we're not dealing with them mentally. So another classic is people get sweaty palms, don't they? Or they start to sweat like they're feeling really anxious. So do you know why that is, Matt?
No, go on.
Okay, so I'll tell you why it is. This is what I'm all about. If we can understand it and normalize it. So the reason that we sweat when we get really nervous or anxious or stressed is actually a really old Neanderthal response way back from when we were all cave people. Okay, and it's a tiny part of the brain called the amygdala, and it puts us into fight and flight mode. And one of the responses is sweating, and it's to make us less slippery so we can't get caught by predators. That is it. But that part of our brain and that response hasn't changed for millennium. All right.
Do you know something, Ben? I was talking to, I won't put a name out, but I was talking to a very good friend of mine yesterday, who's recovering from addiction. And it's interesting what you said at the beginning about you took the scientific approach, and what you just said there about that part of the brain is exactly the same thing for him, to help him recover, to understand what was going on, why these things were happening, and everyone's different. I always think there's different approaches to everything, and you got to find the one that's going to work for you, not just random things. But sometimes it's a bit of a try this one out. If it's working, happy days, stick on that. But yeah, so interesting with that. And I feel we have a lot of human, part of our instinct as we're born is caveman, is Neanderthal, however we want to look at it. It's there, and I think it's very important it's great what you're doing, because it's very important once we understand that.
You got it. It's about understanding it. And within the program, we talk about all those physical symptoms that we all get at some point in our lives. The butterflies in the tummy, the pins and needles tingling in the hands, in the face, and the feet, and we give an answer to all of them that are scientific fact. And people come up to you afterwards and they go, God, I suffered like that for years, but you've just normalized it. Now I can talk about it. And I go, great, brilliant. There you go. And it's okay to feel like that. I think it's really important at this point to emphasize to people that actually stress and anxiety are a normal response, that are actually really healthy for us. If you're going to take your driving test, if you're about to go on stage, if you're about to go on a hot date, it's normal to feel a bit stressed, because what it does is it heightens our whole body and it helps us respond better. And the only time it gets bad is if it lasts for more than a few days and it starts to impact our what we call activities of daily living. So that's always one of my key messages. Stress and anxiety are really normal, actually, and we should be grateful for them. They're only unnormal when they last for too long and start to impact how we live.
100%. And this goes back to what you just said. It's your body's warming you up for something anyway. You got it. Getting warmed up. So it's very sophisticated computer we have in our brain, if we can understand how to use it.
Absolutely. But I think for me, I've taken the science and I've simplified it into a story, which I hope everyone can understand and really get to the bottom of. And for me, it's about a librarian that lives in our brain, and they respond to everything that we learn and see. And you're right about it being a supercomputer. The brain will respond in 0.04 seconds to whatever is in front of us. Okay, so that dinosaur coming to eat us, as an example, the car veering off the road, for example, and that response is designed to save our lives. And that response hasn't changed for thousands of years. The rest of our brain has, as we've evolved as a society, but that part in the amygdala has not, and we need to understand it. But I guess now is also a good point, if you want to distinguish the massive difference between stress and anxiety. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So, key message here, I guess, for anyone that's listening or watching: stress is an external response. So stress is a response to something that is happening in front of us. that massive bill to pay. Okay.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
the mugger with the knife coming at you in the dark alley as you're walking home. They're all actual things that are in front of you that you have to deal with. All right. That is stress. Anxiety is internal. Stress is external. Anxiety is internal. And anxiety is something that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So with that, I like to say that with anxiety, you're suffering with your own imagination. Yeah. Okay. So you want a holiday and you're off to the Caribbean with your best mate or your loved one tomorrow, but you're lying in bed because all you can think about is the plane dropping out of the sky. Okay. And your mind starts playing tricks on you. Okay. That little part in the brain, the amygdala or the librarian, okay, he or she cannot distinguish between what is a real threat, an external threat, and what is an imagination threat, the internal threat. And they respond in exactly the same way when it puts our body into fight and flight. Okay. And that's one of the key messages of the Real Minded method. And it's exploring that. And we do exercises within the workshops to get people to explore that. And then we break it down so they can understand why they've responded as they have, so they can then understand it, so they can then control it. And then the next part is we then go on and we look at the coping methods that actually we all know about, Matt. It's all common sense.
Yeah.
But we're so busy and hectic now that we're not putting time aside for them.
Time is the key issue there, I think. So, because I guess sometimes it's that avoidance of pain. Can use fitness as an example. So people don't want to maybe get fit because they don't want the pain of that initial thing, but there's going to be a long-term pain coming and it's not going to be great.
Short-term pain, long-term gain, brother.
That's the one. That's the one.
All about.
So, yeah. I've lost what I was going to say now, but I like the analogy. Well, I like the understanding of the stress and anxiety, and that is true. When it becomes internal, what is that? False emotions appearing real. It becomes
Absolutely
like, right.
Yeah,
and they can control us a little bit. They control us a little bit and control us a lot. So do you feel that a lot of time on the podcast, Ben, I might talk about we're in control of, if we have a mindset shift, if we're not there already, where 10% of what happens to us we have no control of them, and I accept that, but the other 90% on how I can deal with it and of course prevent it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's about choosing how we react to things. So I'll give you a good example of this. So I was talking to a chap in his 70s recently who I was doing a bit of work with, because he felt he'd lost his way, he retired, and he felt it was coming towards the end of his life. It absolutely wasn't. And he said things to me like, I've got to get up in the morning, I've got to go and see my kids, I've got to go and do the shopping. And I said, you're thinking about it in the wrong way. Replace the word got with the word get. I get to get up in the morning. I get to go and see the children. I get to go shopping, and it's little subtle changes like that that make a massive difference. If we're in the gym, we're working out, we can't straight away go and pick up a 40 kg barbell and start curling with it. We can't. We have to build up slowly and repetitively over 3-4 months. And it's exactly the same with our brain. And I always say to people, you start making these little changes about how you react to things. Get rid of the word got, replace it with get. Get rid of the word should. I should go to the gym. Put in could. I could go to the gym. It creates a positive link in your brain to going to do that. You keep doing that on a daily basis, and these little changes will build up into a much bigger change. One of my mantras is, if you change nothing, nothing changes. Yeah. So you can keep whinging and moaning at me, but if you're still drinking 5 bottles of wine every night, and you're not doing any exercise, and you're not connecting with real people all the time, and you're being an ostrich, putting your head in the sand on your iPad or on social media, then that's not real life. You're not going to expect any changes. So you're absolutely right. You are in control of making the correct changes in your life to make you become the best version of you can be, mentally and physically.
Definitely. I think Anthony Robbins says about the word should. If you keep saying should, I should do this, I should do that, then you're going to should all over yourself, basically.
Absolutely. But we know this. This isn't just us talking rubbish. This is scientific fact. In the same way that we can train our muscle memory, we can train our brain and its memory to start to react to things in a much more positive light.
Definitely. So kind of going back to your journey, what would you say was the aha moment for you as like, I got to change based on what we've been talking about, and also bringing it into your why. I know you've talked a bit about your why, but into what you're doing now. So what was that? I mean, did you feel that coming up? Did it just go boom, there it is, and then suddenly you're in the hospital? What was your aha moment? Something that has to freaking change right now.
Absolutely. So I think with the beauty of hindsight and some knowledge from taking a lot of online. Yeah. So I started off by just doing a few online courses because I had to find out what happened to me. And then, these build up, and, as you're an adult, when you're at school, you learn because you have to learn. When you're an adult, you learn because you want to learn. And there's a big difference there. And so I just became almost obsessed with reading everything I could. And I ended up doing educational courses in psychology, CBT, and that's how I ended up becoming a qualified counsellor. And what I can say now, looking back with the beauty of hindsight and that knowledge, is that I've been suffering with anxiety, with occasional panic attacks for years. Okay. But I'd done nothing about it. I buried them and just cracked on, because that's the traditional British stiff upper lip way, isn't it? So my aha moment was, as I said, on holiday in North Wales, and I started to get flashbacks. And what I mean by that is I would see dead people that I'd been to as a paramedic, or I would see scenes that I dealt with. And the crazy thing is that I chose to put myself in those scenes. That was my choice to be there,
Yeah.
But I was at such crisis point that I was not sleeping for days. Okay. And I was trembling. And I was so bad I couldn't drive myself back home. I had to get family members to drive me 4 hours back home to have an emergency appointment with a GP, who immediately said, "You need to go to hospital." And my physical symptoms were so bad, my heart rate was so high over such a prolonged period, they thought my heart was going to go bang. So that's why I ended up in resus. And that wasn't my aha stage, because at that stage my brain was just saying, save your life, save your life. You literally feel that you are going to die. It's the worst feeling ever, and many of us have it. And I think the aha moment was when I was back home after a couple of weeks of being on some very strong tranquilizers, just to really calm everything back down, to then start again. And I started to see a clinical psychologist, and the aha moment came when he said to me, "It's not your fault. Stop feeling guilty about it. It's because you didn't recognize this buildup of stress and anxiety. You didn't deal with the trauma that you chose to put yourself in.
Yeah.
And it's accumulated over many years, and it's come out bang."
Yeah.
So that was my aha moment. And that was the moment when I went, I need to make some big changes in my life. Number one.
Yeah.
I need to acknowledge the learning points. And that's when I started this quest for knowledge, and, anyone who would put up with me, I would talk to them about it. And you'll be amazed who comes out of the woodwork.
Oh my gosh. I was just about to say this. Yeah. Things my dad said to me, you'll be amazed who comes out of the woodwork. You may be surprised that's not there, but that's okay, because it just wasn't meant to be. But I think the people that come out of the woodwork, 100%.
Yeah. And listen to those people.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've really learned, and I say this to everybody, is one of the core coping mechanisms within Real Minded is called connection. And what I mean by that is connect with people. And that's been really difficult during the pandemic. And I think that's probably a big reason why cases of stress and anxiety and depression have rocketed in the last year. We know that as a fact.
Yeah.
But it's about connecting with people. And I said to you earlier, when you say to people, "I'm suffering with my mental health," they often react very badly. They don't mean to, it's not their fault, but their initial reaction is, "Oh, thank God it's not me." And they will push you away a little bit, and they don't mean to be doing that, but that is just how they're reacting. In fact, it's the same with many physical conditions. If you say to someone, "I've been diagnosed with X, Y, or Z," they'll often say, "I'm grateful it's not me." And that can be very difficult to take. But what you do learn are who those core people are. Okay. And it's what I call the support network. And in fact, it's what I call the M5 test. Do you know what that is?
No, but I already like the sound of it.
The M5 test is really simple. if you're stuck on the motor at 3:30 in the morning, who of your friends will come and pick you up?
Okay.
And I bet you that is less than on one hand. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're the people who, when you talk, they listen.
Yeah.
When you have bad times, they share them with you. But when they have good times, they want to celebrate them with you. You know, we all have many, many acquaintances, and that's great. That's really important. But it's what I call reason, season, lifetime. There's always a reason someone comes into your life. They're either there for a season, for a purpose, or they're there for a lifetime. The lifetime, guys and girls, you're talking 5 or 6.
Yeah, 100%. Similar, actually, Ben. You might be, again, it's a similar, different approach, but it's I say it's like a tree. It's so similar to the seasons. So within our life, you know, our life is like a tree. So you have people that are your roots, and they'll be there forever. And it's just accepting that sometimes people might be the tree, or you're the tree, but some of the roots, but some might be the branch, and they might be there for a long time. But sometimes branches do fall off, and some of the leaves, and they're just there until the fall. But I think for every, you know, my inner circle is so important to me now. And like you said, I think you know, I have like those acquaintances and people you know, I haven't seen for a long time, and I know it'd be like yesterday. But also there are just those odd few that are literally, that's it. They're within the inner part, and I have to keep that. I have to maintain that. I have to real monitor it so that I don't have anything that will influence me in a wrong way, in a bad way. I think I said in a video before, I used to think I was quite hard to influence, but then when I look back on some of the things that I went through, I thought, okay, that wasn't a great comment on mine or great thought process. But I think, yeah, having that support network, so important. So absolutely the right one. And it's okay to say, you know, see you later to someone, or just right. And bring those ones that, like you said, listening is the biggest factor. And you know, unfortunately, still people that don't quite get the whole mental health thing, or it's just a made up thing. It's not real. It's real. It's when you've been there. Anyway, just kind of coming up nearish the end. So grateful for you to come on and share only a portion, like a little window into everything you're doing, really. What would you say coming out of this now? What has been your biggest win when you look back down the mountain from the day where it's, oh my gosh, I'm going for it, in the middle of it? What's been your biggest win coming out of all this?
Do you know what? I've been really blessed. I've had a few. I guess my biggest win is when someone comes to one of the workshops and then they come up to me afterwards and they tell me their story, or more importantly, they come to me or email me 2 or 3 weeks later, you know, and it's always the quiet ones that haven't engaged, haven't said anything. And they come back 2 weeks later and they tell you their story and they say, thank you, you know, or it's one of the guys who was ex-military I was working with. He was in a really, really bad place, you know, and we were just lucky to connect, and he came to a few workshops, and his wife phoned me and she said, thank you so much. You know, you managed to achieve X, Y, and Z. You know, that's what it's about. That's what we're here to do, Matt. You know, we're all people. Everyone's got to remember, all of you guys listening and watching, you know, life is not about making a ton of money to buy loads of things that might make you feel better temporarily. Life is about going through experiences, sharing those experiences, being kind and helping each other, you know. So my highs are when people come back to me and say that's had a massive impact. You've really motivated me to make changes, or, you know, I was feeling like this, I now feel like this because I'm using coping mechanisms, you know, methods. Thank you so much. That, when I put my head on the pillow at night, is what it's all about.
Brilliant.
And all I say to people is, you know, normalize stuff. You know, just by saying to a colleague or a friend or even a stranger, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? That's all it needs. It costs nothing, you know, so do it. And, you know, and you never know the power that you might have with just a little comment.
And that's so true. I remember when people said that to me and reached out. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and
like there was a lifeline.
Yeah, and you know, if anybody wants to know any more about my story, it is there, warts and all, on my website. If anyone wants to know more about the facts to do with mental health in the UK, it's there on my website. You know, there's some upcoming workshops that will be on my website. And, you know, to anyone who needs a bit of support, because I know at the moment there's a 3 to 4 month waiting list within the NHS, very sadly, then please reach out and get in touch, because that's what I'm all about.
Brilliant. You're on Insta, right?
Yes, I am on Insta. Yeah. It's Real Minded UK, and the website is realminded.co.uk.
Yeah, I've put the link is in the copy, so if anyone wants to find out more. I know you've got a couple of speaking events coming up as well, which so, and you said you got some workshops coming up. Is there anything that you are working on, or any kind of speaking events that are coming up that people can get come along and hear what you got to say, find out a bit more?
Yeah, we are in talks with a couple of local venues, because people very kindly seem quite interested in spreading the word, which is great. As soon as those have been finalised, we'll get them up on the website. They'll be on social media, and then, you know, anyone is more than welcome. I will say there's some quite factual videos and pictures of my own story on there, but I do tailor the session to the audience. So if I'm going to schools, it'll be slightly lighter than if I'm delivering to adults.
Oh, definitely. And if anyone wants to get in contact with you, whether it be a school or a workplace, so I guess they can just go through the website.
They can absolutely go to the website. My email address is ben@realminded.co.uk. And, you know, I'll happily help out anyone. Obviously, I'm still working within the NHS at the moment, but my absolute dream and my goal is to get these workshops into schools, onto the curriculum, in every single business and every single home, so that people start to normalize these discussions and treat their mental health on the same keel as they do their physical health.
100 million%, definitely within the schools. We got starting anywhere is something for sure.
Yeah, so I am in talk with a couple of MPs and some of the schools, so fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Oh my gosh, cross prayers, everything.
That's the goal.
One last question before you go, Ben.
Yeah.
So if you could go back to your younger self any point in time, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give?
Be yourself and learn that it's okay to not be okay.
Brilliant. Perfect.
100%.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for coming on, Ben. I'm probably going to invite you back at some point, because
please do.
Yeah,
please do.
Yeah, a lot to cover, and I really appreciate you sharing what you shared. Anyone still watching or listening on the podcast, please share. Obviously, go and check out Ben's page, and if you want to get in contact, drop a message in any of the comments, and someone will get back to you for sure. But of course, you know, if there's anyone you feel may benefit from this, share it with them or tag them in. You just never know. Just sometimes a few words can make such a big difference. That's it from both of us. Thank you once again, Ben. And I'll see everyone very soon. Peace and love always. Ciao.
Cheers, Matt. Thanks, brother. Take care, everyone. Stay happy.